I'm in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And there are places online too, if you don't already know the ancestral people where you are, that you can look that up if you're interested for yourself as well. I know many of you already have. So, building resilience and ease is our topic during October, and feeling at home in the world, even during COVID, is our topic for today. So, this is something that I referred to briefly last time, this feeling of being at home in the world. So, Rock the Boat is a newish book by Resmaa Menakem. He's famous for My Grandmother's Hands, which has been on the New York Times bestseller list for a long time now, about racialized trauma. And this he published a year ago in August 2020 about using conflict to heal and deepen your relationship. It's interesting to see a trauma therapist kind of look at that. So, one of the things he talks about in the book is this deep sense of knowing who we are. We know deep in our body who we are, what we feel, what we stand for, what we need to do. So, this is obviously a place that we get to not all at once. It takes time. My experience, it comes in and goes out, but we have a deepening sense of who we are and what we feel. It's not a mystery to us anymore. And we start to feel more at home in the world and certainly in our bodies, in our lives. So, that's what we're going to explore today. So, he talks about clean pain and dirty pain. And clean pain is when we step up and face the situation, or if we fold and shrink away. So, grow up or flee is very direct language that he uses. And I find for myself, I'm 68, that I feel like I'm still growing up. And I'm still at times noticing the old fight, flight, freeze. For me, it was more freeze. But I still notice that in my nervous system. So just to really bring that to the front, that this isn't an on off switch, that we have very good reasons and our nervous system works in a certain way. So, brightening the self is Resma's term for coming into our own, of being steady enough to really be here. And he talks about it. It's an internal commitment to growing up. And we could also say to being more emotionally mature, to being more aligned with our values, to being less driven by our nervous system. There's a lot of ways to describe that. And if we bring in the polyvagal theory from Stephen Porges, what we know about that polyvagal ladder is that if we're in fight, flight, or freeze, we cannot be in ventral vagal, the trust and connect stage. And so, what I would say is that we can't really feel connected. If we're not in ventral vagal, that's trust and connect stage, we can't really share who we are. We often can't really even afford to know who we are when we're in a chronic state of fight, flight, freeze. So, as the fog starts to lift and we get more self regulated, then we're able to trust other people more, trust ourselves more. And that is when we're really able to show up and face what's going on in our life, that clean pain. So, facing what we don't want to face, what we reflexively avoid or flee from, there's many ways that we can look at clean pain, choosing integrity over fear, letting go of what is familiar but harmful, like soothing ourselves with a dangerous substance like alcohol, drugs, food. And dangerous doesn't necessarily mean life threatening, but it could really mean it diminishes our life. And a commitment to finding the best parts of ourselves and making a leap with no guarantee of safety or praise. So, this internal integrity is what we're developing and cultivating. There's an old quote from Gabor Mate: as children, we traded authenticity for attachment in order to survive. So, what I'd like to just really bring forward again is that we need to somehow do this without shaming ourselves. So, to see our historical patterns as something that was necessary, we can see it more easily when we were children. Children need the safety of attachment and will trade pretty much anything for that. We see children who are parentified, who blame themselves, certainly the core deficiency beliefs, that's the root of that. But we don't magically become securely self regulated when we're adults. It takes a while. It takes a while, usually, for people to really experience safety in relationships, to grow up, to become safe for ourselves to be with. And so, as dysregulated as we can be, and especially during COVID in the last year and a half when all of our supports were really abruptly changed, then we get pulled back into these old patterns and we seek safety. We seek connection and soothing and comfort in all of these different ways. So, just to recognize and understand this is how trauma works, this is how attachment works. And right now in the world, with everybody's nervous systems really hypervigilant, really engaged, there's a lot of fear, a lot of anger, a lot of fight response. It's really hard for everybody right now, including ourselves. So when we're looking at, I don't want to trade my authenticity for attachment, that's certainly something that we can be very committed to. And we need to be compassionate and kind as well, in part because we deserve to be kind to ourselves, and also because that will actually make it more likely that we'll have that regulation, that we could go into the trust and connect and be more authentic and share more authentically. So it actually works better that way too. So to stand in our integrity, accept the discomfort, move forward into the unknown, we need to be out of fight, flight, freeze. And in addition to being realistic and really seeing where we are, we need that kindness and courage. And to honor that in ourselves, but also in other people. This is a world right now where it's hard for everybody. And sometimes we might really judge somebody else or really wish that they could move more into clean pain and stand with us, move forward together. And maybe that's not something that they can do right now. So to be honoring of where we're all at. So let's slow down now and go into some inquiry. So, any of these statements at the beginning, I commit to stay present, to not avoid myself and my life. And as you're working with them, notice if there's any limiting beliefs like the ones on the bottom part. And just to kind of go back and forth. It would take 3 minutes or so. So we have time to really look. So we have this inspiration and commitment to step up, to widen our window of tolerance, to be authentic. And then somehow it doesn't really happen so well. And what is it that gets in the way? It's our nervous system, our trauma history, our limiting beliefs, mean inner critic, not wanting to take the impact. If we change too much in a relationship, we have a sense it will really fall apart. So stay present in your body, notice your breath. And really stay away from letting the inner critic take over. You could do some tapping on your forehead, do some box breathing, or put thoughts up on the wall on the other side of the room. Use all the tools if you find you're getting kind of pulled into some kind of hole. And stay really as a witness right now in this moment. Stay grounded in your body. Really try to stay with kindness and compassion. These are things that we work with our whole lives. And we can really see the cost of not following through, of not being present, of avoiding being out of alignment. And at the same time as we see that and have that commitment, we could also be compassionate with ourselves. These are really difficult things to do in our circumstances, especially when we have a trauma history. We'll finish what you're working with right now. We'll move to the next slide in a moment. And again, we'll take a few minutes here to work with integrity. We'll never really feel at home until we dare to know ourselves and express who we are. And we can't really do that if we're not in the state of connection in ventral vagal. So if we're in fight, flight, freeze, it's going to be really hard to do that. So stay really in touch with your body, with your breath. You could just close your eyes and listen as I say them, or you could read them and focus on one or more. I am willing to step into uncertainty. And notice the thoughts that might come into your mind. There's a part of your brain that's probably trying to talk you out of that. Oh, but what if this happens or that? Stay with your body and breath. I'm willing to step into uncertainty. I am willing to grow into my best self. And we're not talking about a perfect self. We're talking about, generally speaking, more present than not, courage, truth, integrity, kind. What would that even look like, my best self? And we could commit to showing up in relationships, the relationship with ourselves and with other people, as our best self. It's natural to have things come into the mind that would say, well, when you did that, that wasn't really your best self, or you didn't show a lot of courage there, or whatever it might be that your mind is telling you, if it is not to fall into that inner critic. We're not talking about past, really. We're talking about cultivating more strength and more ability to stay, really be present and show up. And what we're really talking about in these inquiries is building our capacity for clean pain. And so the last sentence we might work with is I accept that I cannot control other people's capacity for clean pain. When we think about our relationships, we really have no control over other people in terms of are they able and willing or even interested in clean pain, in really being present, engaged, working through discomfort. I accept that I can't control other people's capacity for clean pain. Notice your body, your breath, notice what you're feeling. This is one of the hardest things to work with, really accepting and allowing other people to be as they are. And it's very true that if other people were more regulated and they had more capacity to be present, that our lives would be easier, our relationships would be better. We can feel a lot of urgency around this at times. Some of these relationships are really high stakes, and really the only one we can work with is ourselves. And I find it helpful just to see how hard it is sometimes for me to be present, kind. It's certainly something that's evolved over the years. But when I think about that and just acknowledge how hard it is to do this work, it does tend to give me a little bit more sympathy for other people. Now we're going to shift a little bit. And one of the things that we know about the nervous system and the primitive brain is that it doesn't really know the difference between something we vividly imagine. This is not easy. And something that happens in real life. And so we also know about the negativity bias and how we tend to remember the things that are dangerous or threatening somehow. And we kind of completely forget the things that are positive. So let's take about 5 minutes now to really bring to mind. You can work with all of them in a row. You can just kind of look and see what catches your eye. I'll read them off through the time. And bring to mind times when you knew that this was true. Like, I know what I stand for. What is an example of that? And then let yourself really feel it. So it might be a time when you were at a demonstration, when you had a really difficult conversation with somebody. Let yourself feel into these. I know who I am. For many of us, that's much more true now than it was 2 years ago or 20 years ago. I know who I am. I know what I feel. You could have your attention resting in your heart center, have a hand on your heart if you want. Just with these mindfulness inquiries, we're really looking to observe what comes up. And in this particular instance, we're looking to really vividly remember instances and times when we really did feel like this. I know what I need to do. It doesn't necessarily mean we're going to do it right away, but sometimes we're really clear. And that can come after a long period of going back and forth and back and forth. I know what I need to do. Use all of the tools, tapping and tracing and putting things in a frame, all of those tools, breathing. Stay really steady and stay here. Stay grounded in this moment. And vividly bring to mind times when that was true for you. Notice how it feels in your body, what happens to your breath. When you're remembering these times, do you have an image of yourself really standing steady and strong? Or maybe as you were having a conversation that was really hard, but something you really needed to say. We're reliving in our memories these times. Bring to mind times where you felt really safe to be authentic. You could express who you are. You were relaxed. You weren't worried about anything. You weren't wondering how they're going to take it if I say this or managing what you said. I feel safe to be who I am. I feel at home in the world. What's not, I feel at home in a crowd of people who mean me harm. It's not that kind of I feel at home. It's not a perfect kind of a situation. So you might have all kinds of ideas come up into your mind, your thoughts. But see if you can just sense into times when you've really felt at home. There's an ease to that. And some of these sentences might be bringing up things that you want to inquire into more. Well, what does it really mean I feel at home in the world? What needs to change? And just for another couple of minutes, keep focusing on these sentences and the experiences and the times when you knew that that was true. You felt that in your own system. I know who I am. I know what I feel. I know what I stand for. I know what I need to do. I feel safe to be who I am. I feel at home in the world.